Hello and welcome. Here's what's happening right now. Ditching the digital tax, Canada and the U.S. resume trade talks.
Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved.
What the concession means for the negotiations.
This is not something that just popped right out of the blue.
Inside the staff shortage causing travel turbulence.
Something I never would have expected in a million years.
Plus, meet two sisters with a shared degree of determination.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
I'm Heather Butts in for Sandy tonight. We begin with developing news in the trade dispute between Canada and the U.S. Abruptly terminated on Friday by President Donald Trump, talks are now back on, confirmed by both sides today after Ottawa decided to drop the controversial digital services tax. Our senior political correspondent, Mike Couture, joins us with the latest on this negotiation reset. Mike.
Well, Heather, Prime Minister Mark Carney says discussions between Canada and the U.S. restarted this morning after a call with President Donald Trump last night. But the way the Americans are framing it is very different.
It's very simple. Prime Minister Carney in Canada caved.
A blunt assessment of how it all played out from the White House. The two leaders spoke late last night, and then Canada announced it was rescinding the digital services tax. Carney said removing it was part of a bigger negotiation.
It doesn't make sense to collect tax from people and then remit them back. So it provides some certainty.
The DST was intended to collect tax from big tech companies that make money off Canadian users but don't pay Canadian taxes. Carney says the two sides will now work towards negotiating a full trade deal by July 21st.
The White House says you caved. Is that how it went down?
The Prime Minister wouldn't answer that, but the Canadian Chamber of Commerce applauds the move, pointing to the bigger picture negotiation.
$3.6 billion worth of trade crosses our border every single day with the United States. We can't afford to play with that. We need to make sure we secure that.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre believes Carney should have got something in return. Writing on X, in exchange, the Prime Minister should insist that the U.S. immediately rescind softwood lumber tariffs, adding, we need to make gains for our workers in these talks.
They forced the U.S.'s hand.
Michael Geist specializes in internet and e-commerce law. He says Canada needs smarter tech regulation than to just make web giants pay up.
We've too often looked at these companies as akin to almost like a policy ATM, where we're anxious to do withdrawals to help fund some of our policy objectives, but we haven't really factored in the costs associated with this and some of the potential negative consequences that might come about.
Rescinding the DST would require an act of Parliament, but the Prime Minister's office says instead of recalling the House, the government will simply stop collecting the tax until they can remove it altogether. Heather?
CTV's Mike Couture for us in Ottawa tonight. The federal government says it's officially taking steps to make interprovincial trade easier. Late today, Internal Trade Minister Chrystia Freeland announced all federal exemptions in the Canada Free Trade Agreement that would inhibit trade between provinces have been removed. The Prime Minister announcing today that voters will head to the polls in August for a by-election in rural Alberta, starting the countdown for Pierre Poilievre's next political race. The Conservative Party leader plans to run in the riding, seeking to make a return to the House of Commons. CTV's Colton Prail joins us with the details many have been waiting for. Colton.
It's been exactly 9 weeks since election night when Pierre Poilievre stood in this building and told his supporters he would never give up fighting for them. But 24 hours later, it was clear if he wanted to continue that fight, he'd need a new seat in the House of Commons. Now we know when he might get it. In the wake of his election win, Mark Carney promised no political games around by-elections that could return Pierre Poilievre to the House of Commons, and sooner than required under election law. Today, the Prime Minister announced the vote in the Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot will take place Monday, August 18th, before parliamentarians return to the House of Commons in September. The riding in southern Alberta on the border of Saskatchewan is a Conservative stronghold.
Well, he has to run somewhere, and of course this riding is probably the most secure riding.
The area we're in is very conservative. So it's probably better that it stays that way.
Damian Kurek held the riding since 2019 before resigning his position earlier this month to give Poilievre a chance to win, and the chance is strong. Kurek won the riding with nearly 83% of the vote and more than 46,000 ballots ahead of the second-place Liberal candidate. CTV News reached out to the Liberal Party to see if they're planning on running a candidate in the upcoming by-election, but didn't receive a response by deadline. Even if Poilievre doesn't end up facing Liberal opposition in the upcoming by-election, he could face plenty of others. The group behind a protest that led to 91 candidates running in his Carleton race last time around say they're planning for an even bigger slate in the upcoming Alberta by-election. Heather.
All right, Colton, thank you. People in an Ontario community have been warned to exercise caution after a 12-year-old child was attacked by a coyote on Sunday.
This is really scary because this is like a four-legged animal. It's aggressive, it may be hungry. They can just tear you apart.
The boy was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Members of the village of Nobleton, just north of Toronto, provided this video showing a man being chased around his driveway by one of the animals. He escaped unharmed. This occurred just days before the boy was attacked. Peak summer travel has not taken off the way thousands of people planned thanks to canceled flights at Vancouver International Airport. The issue is a lack of air traffic controllers. That's also caused problems in the U.S. It isn't new and there's no quick fix, and now even the airlines are speaking out. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson is at YVR. Andrew, what's it been like for travelers this long weekend?
Heather, there were more than 200 flights delayed and 20 canceled on Saturday and Sunday alone here at Canada's second busiest airport. One of the most hectic weekends of the summer gone sideways. The issue is a staffing shortage at NAV Canada, the country's air traffic control agency. YVR says it has no control over the issue that's been a problem for months and that it shares passengers' frustration. WestJet is calling the delays unacceptable. Long weekend travelers we spoke to today are arriving prepared.
The best thing I try to do is just stay in a good mood, okay? Because you don't know when you'll arrive. Hopefully, I'm glad I got here before dinner time.
The staffing shortage was first identified as a problem after the pandemic when travel rebounded. NavCan says it's doing everything it can to beef up staffing, but there is no quick fix. It says there are 500 people in the air traffic services training programs right now across the country. But the path to full qualification takes 24 to 36 months. One expert says NavCan shouldn't be taking all the blame. He's also pointing the finger at Canadian airports and the airlines.
The airlines are basically pointing the finger at NavCan to say, we need more staff. Well, no kidding. We know that we need more staff. But in the meantime, we can only handle so many airplanes. The question is, understand that when you sell something, you should be able to fly it.
The good news in the short term is YVR says today everything is running smoothly and NavCan appears to be fully staffed. But experts warn if you're traveling this summer, especially on long weekends, you should expect potential delays. Heather.
Pack your patience. All right, Andrew Johnson at Vancouver International Airport. People planning to visit a top tourist attraction in Toronto are having to adjust their plans slightly. More than 250 CN Tower workers have been locked out, disrupting some services, including restaurants and cafes. CTV's Beth McDonnell on the breakdown between the union and the Crown Corporation that runs the site.
Who got the power? We got the power!
CN Tower hospitality workers are carrying signs and chanting slogans instead of serving food and beverages to visitors. Canada Lands, the federal Crown Corporation operating the attraction, locked out 250 full and part-time employees after a deal was presented Thursday and talks broke down, causing a disruption at the start of Toronto's busy summer tourist season.
I think that stinks. I'm glad they're advocating for themselves. It's really sad.
Although taking in spectacular views is not a problem, the tower is fully operational. Its rotating dining room, 360 restaurant, and its kiosks, View Bistros, and Le Cafe are closed.
Visitors can still take the elevators up to the observation decks. The Edge Walk and shops remain open. During the labor dispute, guests can bring their own food and beverages.
Both sides have been negotiating since April. The union says many workers earn minimum wage, and the main issues are pensions, which have gone 15 years without improvements, along with wages and health and safety issues. Some of the key terms include annual wage increases of 3% in 2025 and 2026 and 2.5% in 2027, and improvements to our comprehensive employee benefits and pension protection. Unfortunately, the union chose not to respond, the company told CTV News in an email. But the union says things unfolded differently.
That's actually not true. So we were in bargaining all day on Thursday with the presence of a conciliation officer. The company in the end gave us a take it or leave it offer that the committee felt like they could not accept.
In its defense, the company says the union filed a request with the Ministry of Labour, triggering a countdown to allow a legal strike or lockout today, and adds if there was a strike, it wouldn't be able to serve customers with the same quality standards.
That's really disappointing. I mean, it's essential to get food and snacks. We didn't notice a big difference, and we had fun.
The company says it's open and ready to negotiate, and the union says it's happy to get back to the table, but there's no clear sign when that will be. Beth McDonnell, CTV News, Toronto.
Cities across Europe are on alert as a dangerous heat wave scorches much of the continent. In Seville, Spain, temperatures reached 45 degrees Celsius as residents and tourists tried to stay cool. The country is on course for its hottest June on record. Italy, Portugal, Germany and France are among the other countries feeling the heat. The sweltering temperatures are expected to peak today and tomorrow. Crew members from the Disney Dream rescued a girl and her father who went overboard, getting them into a small boat as the ship returned to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Disney says we commend our crew members for their exceptional skills and prompt actions, which ensured the safe return of both guests within minutes. How the girl fell overboard is unknown. Her father jumped in after her. Police in Idaho say a gunman who killed 2 firefighters and injured another lured them into an ambush. The suspect was also found dead.
We had a cell phone activation that was in the same spot, and we honed in on that cell phone, and we saw that there was a male, appeared to be deceased, with a weapon nearby.
The firefighters were shot at after responding to a fire authorities believe was intentionally set by the 20-year-old suspect, who then opened fire on the first responders and also shot at police. At least 58 people were killed by Israeli strikes in Gaza today, according to Palestinian health officials, and that includes a deadly attack at a seaside cafe. Video shows the destruction at the site of the cafe near Gaza City. At least 22 people were killed there and dozens more injured, according to Gaza's health ministry. The Israeli Defense Forces say they are looking into the strike and that they're also investigating recent incidents of Palestinian civilians harmed at aid distribution centers. The UN says 400 people have been killed seeking aid since the blockade lifted May 19th. Coming up, separation anxiety in Alberta.
It's about getting a bigger voice for us out here. We feel forgotten.
Why rural Albertans are divided over the idea of splitting. Plus, when a little bark is worse than the threat of a bite. As people across this country get set to celebrate Canada Day, Alberta is formally changing the rules that could someday lead to an independence celebration of its own. Danielle Smith's government will lower the required threshold this week to initiate a referendum. CTV's Kathy Lee is following the story from Drumheller. Walk us through these changes, Kathy.
Heather, the bill that was passed, Bill 54, that lowers the threshold for citizens to initiate a referendum, including separation, means the number of signatures required has been lowered and the timeline to collect those signatures has been extended from 90 to 120 days. Groups in favor of Alberta separating from the country that I spoke to are confident they will meet those requirements. However, a Leger poll done in May shows that only 29% of Albertans support the idea, 67% oppose it. Even in some of the most conservative parts of Alberta, like where I'm at today in Drumheller, that's the sentiment I'm hearing.
We've had separatist thoughts here for quite some time. I think it's just more, not so much about separating, it's about getting a bigger voice for us out here. We feel forgotten.
It all depends on how it evolves.
It's probably a good thing, but it shouldn't be necessary.
And for Alberta to be an independent country, it's not going to be as easy as flipping a switch. There's a lot of complex issues to consider.
Indigenous rights, Indigenous land, national parks, currency, the military, whether Alberta itself is divisible. What about all the existing trade agreements that connect Alberta to the rest of Canada?
And that legal expert says if Alberta should ever separate, it's going to take years and it's going to be very expensive. Heather.
Kathy Lee in Drumheller. Thank you, Kathy. Calgary's adding fluoride back to its drinking water after more than a decade without it.
It helps to improve the strength of the enamel, that's the surface of our teeth.
The reintroduction of fluoride as a measure to improve oral health cost the city over $28 million with an annual $1 million budget for operation and maintenance. The move was approved as part of the 2021 municipal election with 62% support. Heartbreak for Canada's men's soccer team, losing on penalties to Guatemala at the Gold Cup.
So influential down the left during the game. And he's won it for Guatemala. Canada's long wait for a Gold Cup trophy will continue.
The quarter-final exit comes just a year before Canada co-hosts the World Cup. The team's fortune took a turn when Jacob Schaffelberg got a red card at the end of the first half, reducing Canada to 10 men. It's now been 25 years since Canada won the Gold Cup. And at a youth soccer game in Ottawa, Prime Minister Carney welcomed the 2026 FIFA World Cup trophy to Canada. The international tournament will kick off June 2026 with Canada hosting 13 matches in Toronto and Vancouver. Still ahead, a celebration years in the making. The obstacles these sisters had to overcome to mark a major milestone together. On the eve of Canada Day, Prince Edward is getting a royal tour of Toronto's waterfront. The Duke of Edinburgh visited the Police Marine Unit this morning before visiting HMCS York. After a private lunch, he was scheduled to fly to Ottawa for Canada Day celebrations tomorrow. The Duke just spent 3 days in Prince Edward Island before arriving in Toronto. Families across this country are marking milestones as people of every age celebrate graduations from a variety of schools and programs. CTV's Adrian Gabriel has the unique story of a Toronto family several years in the making.
A shared grief turned to growth.
At a young age, no one expects to just lose their parent.
Sonia Pasquale and her sister Shabna Sahi are 10 years apart. When their father died of leukemia in 2014, the eldest, Pasquale, was forced to drop out of Trent University to work and provide for her two younger sisters and mother. Moments before their father died, she made him a promise that she'd one day go back to school.
I promised to take care of his family and step in for him, and I promised to finish, the things that I started, and my education was so important.
She was like the breadwinner of the family, we were dependent.
A decade after putting her future on hold, Pasquale enrolled at Toronto Metropolitan University to take global management studies. At the same time, and the same school, her younger sister had enrolled in economics and management science.
Something I never would have expected in a million years. It's we have such a huge age gap. I wouldn't expect that we would be side by.
This month, they each shared
Shabnam Sahi,
the convocation stage together.
Mariam Sahi with distinction.
Making them the first two from their family to graduate university.
What do you think your father would say as he looks down on each of you this week?
Any little accomplishment we'd had, he'd make a big deal about it, which is amazing because he was very encouraging. So he would be incredibly proud.
For siblings navigating life without their rock, without their father, their accomplishment is a testament to their perseverance.
It's not hopeless. There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Following their shared graduation, the sisters' unique experience has led to a new commitment to ensure they build a better life for their entire family together. Heather.
Adrian, thank you. A brave little dog in BC showed how it's possible to be fearless even if you only weigh in at 5 pounds. Lincoln, a Yorkie Chihuahua mix, chased away a black bear trying to break into the family's garage. It happened over the weekend in Mission, BC. The pup and the bear came out of the encounter unscathed, much to the relief of Lincoln's owner. After the break, the Science Club offering high-tech help for seniors. Teenagers from across the country have been recognized by the Vimy Foundation for projects with a positive impact. One group is in Fredericton, one in Mississauga, and one we're about to tell you about from St. John's, where, as CTV's Garrett Berry reports, the school science club created an experiment with a deep personal connection.
Behind this screen and underneath these wires, you'll find a labor of love for teenager Alpida Petro.
My grandfather's always like in my heart, and I'm always like thinking about him. So it's like to see these devices go into action, like that he would definitely be like the first person I'm thinking of.
All school year, her Creators of Tomorrow Science Club has been perfecting their designs for a trio of devices aimed at the needs of seniors, specifically those struggling with memory loss.
He was always forgetting things, and he like couldn't complete his daily tasks. He always needed assistance. And you know, that like seeing him struggle so much is what hurt me a lot too as a granddaughter.
They plan to create a card holder, a color matching game, and a Simon Says game. And in October, with some prototypes created, they hope to bring them to seniors' homes and get real feedback.
We'll take our prototypes and we'll basically test them out. So we'll see how the seniors react to it, and like it's new stimuli for them. So we'll see if they like it, if they don't like it, we'll take notes, whatever feedback they can give us.
It's one part personal story and one part recognition of this province's and this country's aging population. Their Vimy Foundation prize comes with $2,500. A lot of it will go towards buying these mini computers and 3D printing filament to make the devices.
I think seeing your thing come to life from like the screen to like hands is like really great, because it's like, you know, it's like your own creation, and it's like really nice.
This 3D printer will become the main manufacturing line for all of those devices just as soon as school starts up again in the fall. Heather.
Some bright young minds helping others. Garrett, thank you. That is our newscast for this final day of June. Thank you for watching. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina later tonight. I'm Heather Butts. Your local CTV News starts right now.